Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander David Marsden. We warmly welcome the family of Private Bertie Hardman, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Bertie Hardman. Bertie Hardman was born in 1897, one of 10 children of Tasman and Isabella Hardman of the Tasmanian town of Brighton, just north of Hobart. After attending the local state school, Bertie worked as a farmer and labourer. Both of Bertie's older brothers, Roy and Harry, enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in 1914 and served in the Dardanelles. Roy was mortally wounded a week after landing at Anzac and was buried at sea. By the time Bertie enlisted in January 1917, the war had ceased to be viewed as a great adventure. We don't know if Bertie's father was reluctant about his youngest son's decision to go off to the war, but Bertie was then several months shy of his 21st birthday and no longer needed parental consent to enlist. After several months training at Seymour Military Camp on the east coast of Tasmania, Bertie Hardman sailed for Melbourne, then to England with a reinforcement group for the 10th Machine Gun Company. He underwent further training on the Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire and then sailed for France in late December 1917. Once there, he transferred to the 40th Battalion as it recouped its losses after the 3rd Ypres campaign, joining in the relatively quiet Messines sector in Belgium for the following month. Bertie Hardman arrived on the Western Front at a time when both sides had largely suspended operations before the onset of winter. The men of the 40th Battalion busied themselves with training and football matches, but conditions in the area were sodden due to evening snowfall thawing during the day and turning the low-lying area into a morass. Roads and trenches were constantly wet and slushy, and fogs lingered throughout the day. No sooner had he arrived with the battalion than Hardman was evacuated to the 7th General Hospital, suffering from a severe case of measles and a case of bronchopneumonia. His condition worsened and he died of illness a week later. He was buried in the nearby Longness Souvenir Cemetery. The Hardman family had lost 2 sons to the war and struggled to deal with their loss. A small epitaph appeared in the local newspaper a year after Bertie's death that read, "Someday, sometime, we'll understand." Bertie Hardman was 21 years old. Bertie Hardman is listed on the Roll of Honour on your left, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Bertie Hardman, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.